So
it just
you're joining us from your car?
Yeah, is it just you here?
Yes, I don't know. I just posted something on Patreon just asking,
I just saw it. I
reminding people.
don't know if the post that I put, I thought I posted somewhere that we're just on our way home from seeing The Greatest Showman.
I saw that. You said it was a sing-along?
Yeah.
That's fun.
I had a go. I didn't really know the songs very well. They're all quite similar, aren't they?
I don't really know the songs from that show.
No, oh, right. So you don't.
Oh, here's Paul. Yeah, I'm not familiar with this. I've heard it's really good, though. I've heard that the soundtrack is really good, and I'm enjoying it. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Yourself?
All right, thank you.
We're all from the UK so far, apart from Karen.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to sit in silence because I'm in the car. But
You're driving, yeah.
just on the way home from The Greatest Showman.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What is it? Like a musical or?
It's a film that seems to have taken places by storm. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it the same in America?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it everywhere. Just I still haven't had a chance to see it, but yeah, I've heard everywhere that everybody's just raving about it, loving the soundtrack, loving the movie.
It's okay. I don't go to the movies much, so it's quite a spectacle. You'll have to see it.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I quite like going to the cinema when I can.
Yeah, it was in one of these small cinemas that has recliners and.
Oh, nice. That's pretty posh, actually. Yeah.
That's how all ours are here, actually. Our cinemas now are all like that, where you actually have to order your tickets ahead of time too. Just like you would a musical theater, like a Broadway show. You buy your tickets ahead of time and you get seats, and they're the reclining chairs and plenty of room, and they're all like that. And we have this group of cinemas. I don't know if they have it elsewhere in the country, but it's called Chunkies. And they have these long tables, and they serve you your dinner, and you watch the movie while you have your chair swivels around. You can turn the chair and eat your dinner.
Nice.
You just order at like a restaurant, like a sports bar and grill kind of food. So yeah, we'll take our kids there sometimes, and that way you get dinner and the movie all at once, so it's not dragging the night out.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, we have one in our town. It's like an independent cinema, and you can get drinks and like a bagel or something, a cake, and I think you book tickets, but it's not that fancy really. It's almost. I mean, I've got a projector at home, and their screen it's bigger than mine, but not that much really. So it's more like a coffee shop.
Oh,
Home cinema.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got quite a nice one at home. So. We do sometimes like to go because they broadcast open and things like that at the cinema now, which I quite like.
Yes. Yeah, our friend was
Some are
just
quite
saying.
good. The odd musical as well, when the National Theatre have them on.
Where do you live, Paul?
Shrewsbury.
Oh, right, quite a long way. I'm Surrey, near London.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've just come back from London. Actually, we've been seeing a show and a few other things.
So we have, so I live technically in New England, and all of our towns are basically named after New England, like after towns in the UK. So we have a Shrewsbury nearby here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes my Google Maps confuses it with the Shrewsbury in America or the Birmingham, because Birmingham's nearby me.
Yeah, and there's London in Canada, isn't there?
No.
Oh, yes, there's London. There's London in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like it's a small group today. Last time we had a lot more people. So did you guys get a chance to see the national anthem, Fergie singing that?
I did, yeah.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't actually. I meant to follow up that story, but I wasn't sure I was going to participate this evening, so I didn't get round to it. But tell me the story.
Well, I don't know if you want to, I could probably share my screen. I think there's a way to share the screen. So here.
Did you hear about this?
Oh, I want to see that. See if I share the screen. Can you guys see this? Okay, so I will play this for you for your benefit, just so we can have a discussion.
Fergie, I think. Oh, she's amazing. I haven't got volume on mine.
Yeah, I'm not. I was just going to say I'm not getting any sound. So.
What was that?
We're not getting any sound.
Oh, you aren't?
No.
Oh.
Not sure. Maybe it doesn't work through the screen share. I have no idea, to be honest.
How weird. I can look at it on my phone.
Ah, I don't know how to get out of here. Can you hear it that way? Off. Not working. There. That's really weird.
We could share a link potentially. I don't know if Janet can access a link.
I'll be home in a minute.
Oh, okay.
All right, yeah. So maybe take a listen
on my phone.
That's a bummer. So when I was doing my interview with Ken Bozeman, he was able to share his screen with me, and it had volume.
It had audio, did it?
Yeah.
Settings then or something. Were you using Zoom? Were you?
Yeah, we did use Zoom.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it wouldn't.
Yeah, because I know I've done it on Skype. Someone's Google Plus as well. People have shared screens with me, and then we've shared audio. So but I don't ever use Zoom. So.
Oh, I missed something. There's you have to press a separate thing. Let me try this one more time.
Can you see?
You hear now?
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly wailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming in the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free? And the home of the brave. Let's play some basketball.
All right. So Janet, it looks like she's probably moving into her house there, but she is not completely gone. Ah, sorry. I don't know what I'm doing. All right. There we go. That was
I
good.
had bad signal on and off. I heard quite a lot of it though.
Okay.
Yeah, the general gist. Yeah.
Weird.
So I don't know if you read any of the headlines about this, but it's really raised a big controversy, and a lot of people were really bashing her for her, we'll say, artistic choices.
Yeah.
And if you really look at the people at the end, they're not smiling because they're feeling patriotic and it's just inspired them. I mean, they're really kind of laughing at her.
Yeah.
What is this? What is this? And it was just kind of the funny thing is, like, I think it actually had the potential to be good as a jazz edition, but
I noticed. Yeah, I was listening to the accompaniment then. I didn't actually, when I heard it before, I never paid much attention. And they're not really doing him many favours, to be honest, because they're playing quite slowly, and the brushes are really kind of a bit off time. They're in time, but it's a strange rhythm, which is going to encourage you to sing a bit weird anyway, probably. So,
I think it's honestly just her, because I think if it had been, I won't say any other singer, but any number of other singers, that they could have pulled off a slower jazz rendition, and it probably would have sounded fine. But she's just trying to make it like too, I hate to say, like too sexy and sultry, and just, it's supposed to be anthemic and, well, literally anthemic, but you know, it's supposed to be triumphant and what have you. And it was just, I don't know, there's just something askew, and I just feel like these, you know, when she goes into those low dark tones, and then she goes into like the bad belting, like it sounds really, her voice sounds really tight, and it doesn't even like vocally sound good to me. I think if she had done a better job vocally too, I think people wouldn't have been as critical of the performance. But I don't know, it just, I think I could tolerate a jazz rendition of that. Like, I think it actually wasn't a terrible direction to go in overall.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read something about this recently. It's sort of a linked thing that loads of singers struggle doing jazz in general if they're pop singers, because it's such a different style that they come unstuck. Even like singers like Annie Lennox, who I love, is an amazing singer, but she had a problem. Like, she did jazz, recorded some jazz stuff, and it didn't go down well or sound good. And you know, so the worst time to try that out probably is when you're doing the American national anthem, which is a banana skin anyway. I mean, have you ever heard Steve Tyler's Disastrous?
I think I did years back.
It's like this just ridiculous sort of whistle tones. It's just bad.
But then you look at like Pink's performance at the Super Bowl of the national anthem, and she was sick, from what I understand. Everybody says she had the flu at the time, and it was just very tasteful. Like, she is just an incredibly tasteful artist. I mean, everything that she does like some really risky, like, you know, the stuff that she does on the silks when she goes and she'll be belting upside down. And have you ever seen any of Pink's performances? And
No, I haven't so much. I mean, I've seen her sing, obviously, but
she does like these circus performances in her shows, and she does the stuff like it's these tricks.
Cool.
Amazing, while she's singing, like, and she'll be literally upside down singing. But yeah, so, and it's just, it was such a different performance. It's like, we know that she has vocal chops. We know that Pink can sing. She's been doing this for decades now, impressing us for decades. And it was like she didn't feel the need. I mean, partly because she was sick, but you can tell she didn't feel the need to say, here I am, listen to me. This is like, when it comes to the national anthem, it's supposed to be inspirational, and it's supposed to, I think, connect, unify everyone.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Have you ever seen the video by Adam Neely, the YouTuber, on this called Anthem?
So I have not seen that one, but I am subscribed to his channel because I know he's
it's a brilliant. I'll send a link or something, because he discusses this in depth. It's really quite how various singers have failed, and also why it's so difficult for the average singer. Because what is it? It's like an ambitus of a 14th. The American, over 2 octaves, like, or something. It's if you add the additional high note, it's 2 octaves, like, and yeah, it's like for an untrained singer, it's virtually impossible to sing. which is and
Yeah,
for the train, it's causes these problems too with taste, I suppose.
Yeah, everyone says it's one of the most difficult songs to sing, and it's kind of like a litmus test that if you can sing this, you can sing just about anything. Especially a cappella, because there are all these strange intervals and such that can really throw people off. But yeah, so like the whole, like, again, listen to Pink sing, and she did kind of try to belt the last note, but you could tell she was sick. But I mean, that's just typical. It is a high note, and you'd kind of want to belt that out. But it was very stripped down in terms of the style, and I think it was perfect. And not that, like, but then you see these other singers who try to like really embellish, and they try to like add all these, basically these vocal runs, these, to prove that they can do this. And my thing is, like, I don't need you to impress me. I just want you to sing the national anthem so that I feel inspired and patriotic and what have you. And it becomes about them and about them showing off, and not about, again, that unification that happens when the national anthem is sung. People coming together and being patriotic, and it becomes about them performing. And I personally, as a listener, don't appreciate when people go nuts on that song.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like a trap, isn't it? Almost like because he said in that video, apparently it was originally written as like a bravura piece for a baritone. The original melody, which was like a song of some London drinking club or something, and then they adapted the melody for the American. They put it to the words of the Star Spangled Banner. Like,
interesting. Yeah, I don't really know the history of it, but. So Janet, you did get a chance to hear some of it, you said?
I heard most of it. Yeah, I just wonder how they couldn't do that with "God Save the Queen," could they? But that's a different kind of thing. I could imagine patriotic people don't want it so improvised on. But I don't know if that is done in the USA with the Star Spangled Banner. You've been saying that. Does Pink sing it? Did you say, or does she?
Well, she sang it. She performed the Star Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And again, it was just, because like you could tell she can sing. She didn't have to add all this stuff to it to prove that she can sing. And again, given that she's had decades of successful performing and touring, like what do you have to prove in that moment? And even then, the Super Bowl audience was enormous. I mean, it's even bigger than what we saw with the Fergie performance. I mean, it's millions of people watching this.
Yeah, there's someone in Freya's Freya Casey's group who I've made friends with, and I've done a couple of Zoom chats with her. She is a larger than life girl in all senses, and she's planning to audition to sing a cappella at Super Bowls and things. And now I know from listening to what Paul says, what she's got on her plate. She's got a very, very big voice, but it's sometimes a bit kind of out of control.
I think big voices have a tendency to get, like, you have to really kind of rein them a little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of the voice you think, oh my God, I'd love to have a voice like that. And then she's just drastically off key sometimes. Because Freya has a Show Your Voice every Thursday that you can post songs. Do you know Freya Casey, Paul?
I've seen her videos, yeah. I think I saw she got a whistle tone video, which I quite liked, yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite a nice little place to be able to put songs. It tends to be the same people each week, and some people put small songs on. So anyway, yeah, but that's interesting. I wondered, I meant to do a bit more research prior to this, the meeting about Fergie. I mean, I'm looking it up as, people defending her and jazzy, screechy, it says it.
It's a sensitive thing, the anthem, isn't it, though, for people in most places, I say.
Yeah, and again, I think for some people, because I've been to games locally, and you know, our town does the fireworks display, and there's some local person who gets, you know, the opportunity to sing the national anthem, and it's one of those things where it's like, this isn't a concert. As much as people are listening to you, they're really only kind of half listening to you half the time. You know, they're getting ready for the game, they're doing whatever, and it's just kind of, I don't understand that mentality, but at the same time, I think I understand the pressure that some singers feel like this is their one chance maybe to get noticed, or, you know, I'm not talking about Pink or Fergie, but, you know, this is their one performance that they've had in a long time, and, you know, and they want to kind of just prove that they've got it, because maybe it, like, especially if they're thinking ahead, you know, maybe this means more gigs for me, and maybe some people will notice me down the road.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, isn't it? And then some people, there's a greater risk of over singing if you're under pressure, I dare say. You know, it's one of those things. Not easy.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because it's like, you know, prove that you can sing, and as a singer, I feel like we do have a lot of that pressure. Like, you know, when you call yourself a singer, well, prove it. And then what do you do when you try to prove it? You try to prove, like, okay, well, what I would personally, I would say, okay, what do people value right now for the singing voice? Okay, belting. They've got to be able to have these high notes, you know, so they got to be able to belt. They have to have high notes. They have to be able to do these runs and riffs, and they have to, you know, and so what do I want to do? I want to, in one song, prove to you that I can do all of it. And I feel like that's what the pressure that they're dealing with.
Yes. It's not easy, like,
but honestly, I think if she had just dialed it down just a tad, it actually would have been a neat rendition. But the other thing too is vocally. I mean, some people were really defending her vocally in terms of, well, she can sing, she can totally sing. But if you really listen to the Black Eyed Peas, which is the band that she's actually part of, it's very because she's very chest, like, she brings up a lot of weight.
Very brassy.
She doesn't really have any kind of a head voice. She doesn't really have much range, actually, even though she was able to sing this song. You can hear that she's really struggling on those slightly higher notes that she's belting. You can hear that, like, there's a shakiness, an instability in her voice. Like, there's so much effort happening there, and she has very little control, and it's going to break in any moment. That's what I felt like the whole time she was singing all those, you know, those slightly higher notes and passages. I felt like she was going to, like, her voice was just going to kind of like snap on her, not in a injury way, but just like she was going to break. She was going to go really off in pitch. Something was going to happen, and I'm surprised it didn't, actually, although she had a couple little pitchy spots. But I feel like if you really listen to her singing, she's just she tends to stay within a very limited range in her other music. And, you know, so she tackled this song with that same kind of technique, and it's a limited technique. So it's not that she has a terrible voice, but I think it really highlighted her vocal weaknesses.
Yeah, I think, again, the song doesn't help, like, really, for that.
Especially if she's got a limited range, and Paul's saying it spans that much.
Well, again, if she had a head voice, which a lot of singers go into more of a head voice when they sing that song, and the top note, if they go up, or they don't go up, they just stay down on that the last note. A lot of singers will do that. They'll just stay down, stay in the comfort zone. It's okay.
I don't think she sang the second high note, though, did she? I think she sang, because there's two, like, on the Rocket's Red Glare is one high note, and the last one is the same in the original piece. But I think lots of singers raise that note to give it an extra bit of impact. Like, but I'm not sure if she sung it. But
I thought she did there, but I have to go back.
I can't remember.
Yeah, in any case, and she tried to belt it out, and it just sounded like a tight belt, like not like a really trumpet, like just floating kind of belt that, you know, that you could tell it's like her technique's really secure if you do that. But yeah, so I feel like, and I always say this to singers, it's like, you're better to strip it bare, strip away a lot of the stylistic stuff, all the gymnastics and such, and have a much more solid vocal performance than try to fill it up and with things that are going to highlight your weaknesses. And I feel like her performance actually highlighted her weaknesses, not her strength.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it again. I'll watch it again. It's on every single report here. It's got the video as well.
It's gone viral, and you know, she apologized, but it was one of those like veiled apologies, like, well,
Yeah,
you know, hey, I tried something different. I tried to take a risk, and I guess just it didn't work. People didn't like it. You know, that was her thing, and that's okay. She kind of owned it, and she said, you know what, I owned this, and this was a risk. I own my artistic choices, even if people don't understand them. You know, but that's, I was kind of, and it's, I look at sort of the popular music genre in general, the stuff that actually makes it on the radio. I'm not talking indie music, folk music that's not really as well known, but I think that there are certain expectations that the listener has in terms of what makes good music, what constitutes good music. And I think that she pushed for an audience that broad, and she would have been, I guess it would have been safer, of course, you know, kind of, again, dialing that down a little bit, even if she went with the jazzy thing, which, like I said, I actually didn't mind. But understanding that it's not going to resonate with the vast majority of people who are used to listening to pop music that they hear on the radio. It's just not going to resonate with them. They're not going to get it. And save that kind of risk, I think, for when you have your own audience that knows you and appreciates you, or is a jazz-loving audience.
How big was the audience there?
I don't know. I don't actually know. Maybe you can find it on your phone there.
Was it like a televised thing or something, like a big basketball game?
It was, yeah. Not as big as the Super Bowl, but.
I was thinking with the things like to the wide audience, you think like riffs and runs are still in with. I'm not massively up on mainstream pop. I know a little bit of it, but I hear some singers. I mean, like, I don't know how popular it is, but like a singer like Lorde, she doesn't use any riffs or runs or anything, really, does she? Like, she's kind of.
She doesn't do a lot of anything. She's a pretty straight.
She just kind of speaks almost, doesn't she? Like,
yeah. She strips things down pretty bare. But she's kind of like that singer who, she's kind of like a rebel without a cause sometimes, you know, because she's young, you know, she came on the scene when she was, 15 or 16, like really young, you know, and she's a decent songwriter. Like her vocals, I wouldn't say are spectacular, like they're okay, they're sufficient, adequate for what she's singing. But, you know, I think that she just she's found her little niche, and she's kind of like, I think, I won't say she's rebelling against pop, but if you've seen some of her interviews, she's talking about how nobody's making the music she's making and how unique it is, and yet she's playing on the same radio that all these other singers are playing on. So it's, I don't think it's quite as unique as she thinks it is.
She's critically acclaimed, I think, you know, because you see her in the music blogs like her.
Yeah. So, but I think she thinks that she's pushing more artistic envelopes than she is. You know what I mean? Like, I think she's actually a lot safer than she thinks she is, with what she does vocally and what have you. But I mean, yeah, and I think that proves the point, though, that it doesn't matter. Like, all the runs and riffs and all the belting, because she's not really a belter either. You know, I don't think that's always necessary. I think that there are some people who do just naturally sing that way, and it works for them. But I think there are a lot of singers out there who make it big and don't have all those same skills. But I mean, we've talked, I think, about this before, about sort of the cultural expectations, but also how those expectations change over time. So if you look at it from the 50s and 60s, and, you know, the Beatles and, you know, Herman's Hermits and all those guys, right? I mean, they were not amazing singers. They were not huge belters. They didn't do the vocal runs and riffs. Like, all the melodies, Leslie Gore, you know, It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To. It's like super simple, catchy tunes. I think part of the popularity was that the market wasn't nearly as saturated as it is now. So they weren't fighting for the same places like they are today. You know, I think that had the market been as saturated back then, maybe some of those singers would not have been on the radio.
Yeah.
But I think that was part of it. Like I always say, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Amy Grant. So
name
saying baby.
Oh, yeah.
That song. Okay, so she was a teenage Christian recording artist. And if you really listen to her voice, it's kind of a little bit like, oh shoot, oh, I can see her face. She was a judge on American Idol too. Well, like Gloria Estefan is another one too. Gloria Estefan and yeah, well, she's one of them. Gloria Estefan. She's like not amazing singers, really. They're just kind of average, sort of like.
Kylie's not a great singer, really, is she? In the grand scheme of things.
No, and again, I think it like for like Amy Grant, for example. I think she came on the scene at the right time. She was in the right place at the right time when there weren't a lot of contemporary Christian recording artists yet. This was back in the 80s when it wasn't saturated like it is today. And she was young and pretty, and she had popular music because up until that point, everything had been hymns and worship choruses, and she came on with more of a pop kind of sound, and the executive producers knew what they were doing, you know, and I think she just lucked out, honestly. But again, if the market had been as saturated, I don't think she would have had the same kind of success that she ended up having. And the same with Gloria Estefan. I think she came on at a time when, you know, people were really focused on dancing, for example. She was a really good choreographer and a really good dancer. And that's the time when everybody started putting dancing in their videos. And
yeah,
she just, I think
very catchy songs, though, didn't she, Gloria Estefan?
Yeah.
They were writing those songs did quite well, I think.
Yeah, but if you really listen to the vocals, I'm not that impressed, you know. It's just, but does that mean the songs aren't good? You know, does it mean they're not good entertainers?
Yeah, exactly. I think some of this changed for female vocals a bit with the influence of Whitney and Mariah Carey, basically, then with this massive kind of sound, melismatic runs, all that kind of thing. You know,
I think so, yeah, and the gospel influence for a while. There was a big period where a lot of singers were influenced by gospel music. Definitely. Yeah, so I think it changes over time. You know, and I that's something I always wish I can instill in people is just like, you know, you don't have to do all the fancy stuff. Even myself, like I sometimes feel that pressure. Like I feel I have my own way of singing that I think works for me, but then I still feel that pressure from both without and within to belt more and to sing higher and to push my voice and to, you know, and I feel that pressure because again, we're being compared to all those singers who are doing it. And then there's listener expectation on top of all that because now they're used to hearing those singers do it. So now if you don't do it, they're like, what's wrong with you? You can't sing.
Yeah. Some of the belted songs are fun to sing, though. That's what I find. Like personally, power ballads are fun to sing. I don't actually perform those songs really much. It's fun songs to sing. So.
Yeah, and I have songs because I sing a lot of musical theater, so there's always a little bit of belting. But generally speaking, songs that I sing best are not heavy belty songs. They have like a note here or there, you know, in the song, you know, the pivotal note at the end, and maybe a couple other sustained notes. So it's like I can belt, you know, but do I need to be belting all the time? And my voice is just naturally lighter instrument, and it's just not naturally inclined to belt like some other voices, more robust voices might be. And so, you know, I think I pick music that works for me with where I'm at vocally, but also just who I am vocally. Like I don't hear music the same way that the next person does. Like I don't, like when I write my music, I have a certain way of hearing the voice moving, and it's different from how other people hear voices, like vocals. Like I just don't hear the big, you know, like I just, they're bailing, like they're belting and they're wailing and they're doing like, you know, all this stuff. And I just don't like hear music that way. I just don't, I would never think if I were improvising to do that. Like it's just not what I would think to do.
Yeah, it's good if you can be authentic. You know, it's a big part of it, really, isn't it? Rather than if you try to imitate something because it's the style everyone else is doing, it's just generally a bit naff normally.
Yeah, and sometimes, unfortunately, if you sing in a way that kind of suits who you are, sometimes that can be boring to the listener who's expecting something different. And that's what I struggle with. I struggle, like I sort of sit on that, like wanting to impress and wanting to give people what they're kind of expecting, and also wanting to be authentic and be secure in my singing and how I approach my singing and feel like it really just fits me and I'm confident in that.
That makes the most sense, surely.
The latter, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Because it's so different for me where I've come from. Sort of from just wanting to learn to sing as well as I can, and it's rarely going to be for an audience, but I do get caught up in like Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. Oh goodness, this isn't the right voice. I mean, it's not a pure head voice, and then I get wound up in fact, in the cinema, I belong to a group that Gillian Keys owns. Do you know Gillian Keys? Vocal Process.
She's going to be on one of my videos soon.
Oh, is she? Well, I mean, have you looked at all about because she's got a book coming out, and in fact, she's got a group. What's it called? A workshop near to where I live, and I'm going to go.
Oh, good.
In April, which is when the book comes out, and I have got the book on order. It was only about £6 or something on Amazon pre-order. Well, This Is a Voice.
Tell her I say hello.
But it's I mean, their chat about belting. It's called The Singer and the Actor. They're talking about all this thick and thin and modal and it's all changed. She was a still. Because I love the science of it, I really, really want to understand it more. But I can see the people in her group are all of that genre, and they're well into it. I'm determined I'm going to understand it more. Yeah. But it isn't just pure. It's not belting and mix, and it's just loads of shades of it. And what's causing it? And there's nothing that tilts the cricoid cartilage. It's actually the thyroid cartilage moving backwards. I really want to.
That's her new thing. I saw a video on her of her speaking on that recently as well, because stills research was showing that it was the cricoid cartilage tilting for belt, and then like recently they're like, well, you can't really tilt something that does this and this and this. So it just was like it seemed illogical more so than it actually. Yeah. It hadn't been proven that it was not happening, but based on the actual actions of what it's capable, how it's capable of moving, it didn't make any sense. And so,
teachers have showed me the two cartilages and the muscle crisscross in between, and it looks obvious that it's going to do that. They call it the open the helmet, don't they?
Well, if you look on YouTube, look under I think I think that's how I found her video too, was I looked under her name and then type in the belting and cricoid cartilage or something like that, and then she has like this little speech where she talks about why she changed her view on that, because I think she did an updated version of Singing in the Actor. She edited it.
Yeah, there is, because I've got an old one.
Right. So, and that was one of the edits that she made, which was, I think people were asking her about. But yeah, it's interesting because it's like there's so much about the voice we don't know how it actually works, because it's just
I gathered this from reading a bit. There's a lot that people kind of have an idea. One informed person that makes a reasonable case for one thing, then some other PhD who says something else, and it's hard to. Who really knows?
Yeah, there's some incredibly knowledgeable people in her singing and actor group. And someone posted.
I'm on her Facebook page for the Singing in the Actor.
Well, it's that group then. They've had a sort of a whole load. She's sort of tireless in her interaction in it. She's obviously just totally fascinated and very, very knowledgeable.
Well, I just found out from a friend who was staying with she was staying with her that she's turning 80 in April.
Is she that? I can't believe that.
I know. Yeah, I was talking to my friend.
That's not Maribeth, is it? Because she's older as well.
Yeah, it's not Maribeth.
No, so 80. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I think she said it was Jillian, not Maribeth. Yeah, because we were talking about Jillian's contribution to my video. So
yeah, because she's going to be with the naked vocalists as well. I think it's because of the book coming out, is it?
I think so, because she's actually
updated. Yeah,
because so she's a brilliant marketer, and she is a very, I won't say aggressive, but aggressive marketer. So she's you know, she's asked me to put in, like, she kind of, I let her slip in a commercial in her her thing, and you know, she sent me like a whole email full of links for us to use for in the description box, and discounts on this program, and but yeah, it's funny, she's just very, and so I'm also having Chris Johnson from the Naked Vocalist, who's going to be participating in this series that I've got coming up. That's
yeah, he's great.
Yeah, so I interview I'm not really interviewing them. I ask, it's a series of 7 questions that I ask. So each week I post the answer to one of these questions that I ask. And so I've got, Chris Johnson and Dr. Dan participated, and I've got some familiar names and some independent studio teachers whom you probably have never heard of, and then others that you have heard of, like Chris Johnson and Jillian, and just kind of like getting different perspectives from people from different backgrounds, classical, contemporary, you know, independent studios, academia. Some of them are in academia, so they're PhDs teaching at university levels, and to see how many similarities there are with teachers in terms of what we feel are the core things that we need to focus on as singers. And so the questions are related to, like, you know, what are the 5 most critical technical skills singers need to develop? What are 3 things you wish somebody would have told you about singing before you started out? You know, what does it mean to support? One of the questions I'm looking forward to is list 3 of your most favorite books or resources, because people are always asking me, like, what should I read next? Like, what would you recommend? And it's, you know, you gather 8 different teachers, and they all recommend 3 or so resources, and then you've got like yourself a nice big list of resources.
I must admit, like, having, you know, had singing lessons off and on for 2 years or so now, and not done much for it, the field of singing instructor is a bit of a mess, in my opinion, from coming in. I mean, I teach guitar sometimes, and guitar instruction has issues, but there's broadly, you know, broad agreement between what we think. Classical people have different opinions to us, but we can kind of, sometimes there's disagreement, but we know pretty much what you've got to teach a person to do. But singing's all over the place, like, with the amount of different opinions and what people think matter and what people think doesn't matter. It's a bit confusing at times.
It is, and you know, that's the hard thing. Again, I think it comes down to the fact that it's an invisible instrument. So we can't just say this is exactly how you're supposed to do this, because it doesn't work that way, and we all come in playing it slightly differently to begin with. Yeah. And it's just, so I know I've run in some teacher forums that there's a big push right now for some sort of, you know, standardized training amongst singing teachers, which will never happen. No. Even if you focus on, like, the functional training, just getting the instrument functioning properly, you're still, how you get a classical instrument to function properly versus a contemporary instrument, I mean, you have to learn a whole different set of skills for each of them that nobody on earth has time for. Nobody can sit there and really pursue both classical and contemporary styles to their fullest. I mean, like, not just kind of brushing up, you know, on each of them, but I think it would be just an impossible task, and I don't know if I'd like that. I don't know if I would like a certification that we all have to go through, that may or may not agree with what works for us and how we think teaching should happen, because I think we all bring something different to the table, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't know if the disagreement, I think as long as we're respectful and understand that, you know, I may not like a still, I actually do, but, you know, but I see the good things in it. I see that how it could work for a lot of singers. I see that it's got some solid, you know, science behind it. I may not teach everything that CVT teaches, but I see some really great stuff in there. Same with, you know, singing success and speech level singing. Like, I can see all the good things in them, that there are limitations, just like there are going to be limitations with how I teach. And I kind of teach like a hodgepodge, like just this mess of techniques, because I have students who just sing so many different styles. And so I adopt from this one and I adopt from this one. And And I think that's actually a good thing. I don't think being stuck with any kind of specific methodology is really going to be helpful to as many people as are being flexible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, the idea of certified, I think I've seen on the voice, someone was saying almost like, maybe we should have a certification that people must follow. And I thought you get the absurd situation where, like, someone like myself who plays in a band and there's more than one singer, and there's like peer coaching and advice like, well, you're almost illegally teaching singers in your band to do something. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, and I think a lot of that kind of peer advice goes on in, you know, in the music world, so you can't really police it.
Yeah, I just don't see us ever all coming together, and I don't think that would service students. I just don't.
How does one manage to get into like singing success or CVT? Obviously, you've got far more basic knowledge, but to get the essence of it without, because they're such massive, is it easy just to get the essence of what their USP is, and you know, just the different you've managed, you know what.
Well, singing success
is about.
is pretty easy, but CVT is a little trickier because I think that they use a lot of terms that are kind of their own,
like
their
these
own vocabulary, and it's so funny because I had this discussion with another teacher on a forum, and I was saying, well, it's like, why is curbing, which, I mean, it doesn't, to me, that has no meaning whatsoever, like the actual word itself.
I don't know
if I know what it means in terms of sound that I'm trying to produce in the physiological setups that I need to produce that sound, that's fine. But then why is that any different than using terms such as belting or chest voice or head voice or, you know, twang, for example? Like, why, you know, how is that any superior when it's really no more accurate in terms, you know, or no more objective than using head voice?
Because it's making it uniquely theirs. And so it just, I see those words and it's difficult to find out a lot about it without joining it. So
yeah, I've had lessons with a CVT teacher, quite a few, like,
yeah.
So, and it is a bit like that. The best site is which they don't advertise much, is the CVT research site, which has every sound that they make, and they've got it on the laryngoscope and all the everything. Like, so, if you're interested in the sort of the thing they talk about, but it is a bit weird. Some of it is pretty good, and some of it's a bit confusing. Like, so,
I've seen the samples on the site, and some of the singers are not the best singers either. Demonstrating it, which is funny, but how this whole discussion came about was I posted something because I had just been on the CVT Facebook page, and somebody had posted a video and with a timestamp and said, what mode is this singer using here? And one said that he was using reduced density curbing, and another said that he was using full density edge. And it was like, okay, so how could two people say that using two completely different densities and two completely different modes? And that's what, so I went over to this other page, the Voice Geek group page, and I said, okay, this is what I want to know. Like, how important is being able to use this terminology accurately? How important is that in terms of what we do with our students and learning how to sing? Because and it got into this whole discussion with people defending CVT, and I'm like, I have nothing against CVT. I think it's great. There's some really good stuff. It's good research-based stuff. So I made that very clear. Like, I'm not knocking CVT. I'm just saying that. And then so somebody came up with research. They had done these studies where they trained these CVT teachers. They went through a whole course, and at the end of it, they had 75% agreement on the modes that people were using when they heard singing samples. And I'm like, 75% is not enough. Like, if you strive to be able to, you know, you're striving for this accuracy because you're saying, okay, you got to use very specific terminology. You've got to use these very specific modes and the densities and the qualities. Yeah. Then how is it that you're getting? To me, that's not enough agreement. There should be near 100% agreement if you train these people well enough. And then it went into this whole discussion about, you know, the perception of sound and how, you know, it sounds like, how sometimes it sounds like, you know, somebody singing in chest voice, when in reality they're not. They're just using a lot of density in the sound, but it's really actually an M2 coordination. And it went into this whole thing about you can brighten it or darken it, and that can also change your perception of it. Like,
yeah, it's a bit weird, especially with the perception thing. I was thinking about something I've been thinking about the past few days, and sometimes when I hear like people talking about extra compression or whatever, it's like so and so singing with more or less compression. Sometimes to me sounds like the person singing with more or less twang. Now, I don't know sometimes whether that's me, whether that's the person who's describing it, whether it's the way I'm hearing it, whether, you know, because it's not actually that easy to identify these things sometimes.
Yeah, because if you told me to sing with more compression, I would not think more twang. I would think more squeeze, which is not necessarily compressing in the same place as twang. Twang is actually above the vocal folds. And so, I would go more into more of a squeeze if you said more compression. So, I mean, and again, it's like subjective. We're trying to make it objective because we're trying to like establish some sort of common language, but I don't know if it's ever going to be possible, because how I see something is just not like, there was that whole movement of people trying to move to just, you know, just talking about, you know, M0, M1, M2, and M3. We have four, you know, mechanisms for modes of the voice, and that's it. And everything else is just, you know, style and, you know, more or less of this or that or whatever. But even then, like, we're discovering that it's not always clearly M1 or M2, because there are different types of compression that we can add to the sound. So there's the, you know, the muscular compression, like the TAs, for example, that medial compression, they squeeze the vocal folds together. But then there's also this cartilaginous compression at the back that can make things compressed and make it sound like chest voice, but doesn't necessarily mean you're an M1. You could still be an M2, but sound like M1. And it's just like, well, what's the point? Like, what are we doing? I just don't know.
There was an expression I saw today, something in testa. The sound of
voci in testa.
Yeah, I think that was probably in one of Burton Coffin's books that I've got myself bogged down in. What I do is too much reading and not enough singing.
Yeah, so there's sorry, go on.
Burton Coffin books, because I found trying to get them in the UK, they're brutally expensive. Like £200 one of them. Oh, you've got that. When I was looking to buy the book, they were going to charge me extra for that.
Well, I just managed to get a cheaper copy than most places from a lovely girl who lives quite near me, but you know, I drove to collect it from eBay, and she said, "Oh, I bought this book and it's far too complicated for me." And it had another vowel chart in it, which I've actually sent to Brian. You know Brian. But I need to use my voice more. And in fact, the thing that is being impressed on me more now, and you know, I call it like cocktail party phenomenon. Once you hear something, you hear it everywhere. Is the more natural use of the voice, probably what they call primal sounds. Yeah. Because I think for me, I can get so wound up in wanting to sing that I make restrictions on my voice, that if I just went, whoa, I would have what I wanted without
it's interesting.
I could do it.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I remember when I've had some lessons, when I was having lessons with Dan Formick, who Karen knows as well. And he was saying, sometimes when you're speaking, like, and you emphasize a word, or you get right to a pitch, you know, it's a nice pitch. When you try and sing, like, that's something, you do something, it suddenly becomes difficult. And I think it's kind of a truth to that.
Well, I always say it's because we tend to draw a line between speech and song.
Yeah.
This is speaking and this is singing, and we get in our heads that singing is so significantly different, but we don't understand that it's like, I mean, I think we do intellectually, but when we're actually in the process of singing, in the actual act of singing, we don't really understand that it's made with the same instrument. It's like it's not two different instruments. It's the same thing. So whatever your speaking voice is capable of, your singing voice is capable of, and vice versa. So I think I do the same thing. So I've been really looking a lot at the process of audiation. I'm trying to get a video out on that topic too. It's just that it's basically like a cognitive process by which we interpret and hear music even in the absence of the physical sound.
Oh.
So, like if you were to think of your favorite song right now, or a favorite song, right? You can probably hear the singer's voice. You can hear the timbre and the textures and the color. You can hear that guitar lick that you like so much. You can hear the drum beat. And that's a cognitive processing thing. And what I find what I sing best is when I get it in my head, get a really clear picture of the sound that I'm aiming for, and I picture my own voice ahead of time. And I just kind of let the voice go and let it coordinate without thinking, okay, I need twang, and I need to like this, and I need to. When I start thinking of like micromanaging all the different aspects of my technique, it's a mess. And so I find my best notes are when I do that, where I just kind of conceive of the sound that I want and just go for it. And I focus on the sound and not the coordination. And that's why sometimes this whole, we want the voice to function. We want to be able to learn how to do things, but sometimes I wonder, are we spending too much time thinking about M1, M2? Is it?
I certainly am, and I know I'm an overthinker. And probably you are as well.
I am, so again, because I always go back to belting because it's just not something that's ever come naturally for me, and I have to work at it. I have to work to belt, and it's not always consistent because I get in my own head, because I know that I'm not a good belter. And so as soon as a belted note comes up, like I'm anticipating it and I'm trying to coordinate for it. And it's always a disaster. Like there's this one song that I am ready to record. I am totally ready to record this song.
The last
note. It's the last.
The same song.
Same song. I can't get past it. It's better, but it's like there are days when it's like, oh, I did it. And then the next day it's kind of like, oh, I'm pulling back. I'm chickening out. I'm terrified of this note and I'm psyching myself out. But like I'll sit there sometimes in my room and I'll have music playing. I'll be listening to one of my, a favorite song or something, and I'll hear somebody belt a note. And while she's doing that, I hear it in my head, like what she's doing. I'm not over analyzing it, but I hear, and my voice just suddenly coordinates and I sound just like her with my own voice, but just like her. And I'm like, oh, I did it. It was the best belt I've ever done in my entire life. And I'm so excited. And it's like, well, but if only I could get that in my head. And that's where I started thinking about the audiation idea, that if you if you can hear that, because that's all I was doing when I was listening to that, right? I hear her sing it, put it on pause, and I sing it immediately after. And I'm still hearing in my head what she's doing, even though I'm not actively thinking about the process. My brain is processing that. It's figuring out what she's doing to make that sound.
Yeah, that helps for me a lot as well. If I'm struggling, I just listen to the recording and sing it line after the singer, and it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Well, when I was doing that, like that little pink, I'm practicing that little raspy belt kind of thing, right? So there was another part of that practice session that I went over and over and over and over again, and it was a high belt, like a D5, I think it was, which for me is somewhat of a high belt, and I was like. So I was just listening to her, and I was listening to how she's doing it. I'm not overthinking. I'm not thinking how much twang is she using or what have you. And I went over and over and over and over this for literally a half hour, this one little section, this one, like 2 lines. And I was like, whoa, that's like Pink style belting. It's not the musical theater belting that I'm necessarily aiming for most of the time. But it was like, but it took me a lot of just going over and reinforcing that, like a half hour, literally working on 2 phrases repeatedly over and over and over again. And I would do it along with her, and then I would do it without the music, and I would do it along with her without the music. And it was starting to sound good. Like it was like this compressed E5, which for me is a big deal. Like it's, but I had to I listened to somebody else who was doing it well, and I just tried to create the same sound she was without overthinking it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not easy. It's difficult though. Sometimes you don't want to mess up your apex note, do you? Because this feels it's nothing worse than having your biggest note and go bad because it's just the most obvious when anyone hears it. You know? So.
Yeah. So I'd be happy if I could record it myself. You know, just in my own.
What song was that, Karen? What song was that?
I'm a stranger here myself.
That's the one with the last note. Which is the Pink song?
The Pink song was what was I doing as the Great Escape. I don't necessarily, I don't think it's a good song for me in terms of the style and such, but I like the song, but it's not, I would never sing it, perform it, but it was just like, okay, it was achieving the sounds that I was trying to work on. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use her as an example because she's a phenomenal singer. Like,
yeah,
amazing.
I can't remember the song that someone was saying that she wasn't singing it in a belt, and I got wound up about whether it was belting or not. And, I can't remember which song that was. I'll have to find it. My one is that C sharp in, I probably tried it with you, the Suddenly Seymour.
Right.
Which is a C sharp 5. And just every now and then, and some singers seem, there are quite a few singers obviously that do it so effortlessly, and I think it might well be the sort of going Suddenly Seymour at getting that to the right pitch rather than suddenly, which isn't as high, because then all of a sudden I'm just squeezing. But it's become a bit of a mission, because that's sort of where I came into wanting to learn to sing better, is because my husband and I sang that in a concert to the Christmas before last, and that's when I started having lessons and finding out how much there was on the internet about singing.
It gets easier, I think, the high notes and the belting notes over time. I used
bit
to
by bit,
semitone
by semitone.
Yeah. Tension is the enemy, I find, with large series of belted notes. Like, the actual hitting the pitch is rarely a problem, but yeah, tension is.
Yeah. I mean, I find for me, it's like, yeah, it's so much of a psychological battle of it. It's like, I'm probably perfect physically.
Did you say you're going to, sorry.
Oh, go on.
No, did you say you're going to write something about it, an article or a video?
Like the Audiation? Yeah, I already recorded the video. I have to edit it.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, it's just like pretty much what we talked about today, just this idea of just kind of not overthinking the coordination itself and over-analyzing what we're doing, but just it's in a split second getting this really clear concept of you singing that sound, that note exactly like you want to sing it, and just go for it and don't overthink it. And I do it with some of my students too who are overthinkers, and I'm just like, picture in your head and then just go for it, and it works nearly every time. And it's just because, again, I think that our instruments are far more capable than we give them credit for. I think that we're more able to do than we know, but we get in our own head.
When you think about it, if you want to mimic a certain style of voice, an accent or something, you don't kind of think, wow, how much volume or what kind of vowels or things like that. You just kind of think what it's like in your head and try and speak it, don't you? So I guess the brain can sort of do it, more or less.
So I'm, I've mentioned this before, but I'm obsessed with the soundtrack for A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And the female singers are sopranos, but there are a couple others who are not, but the lead singers are sopranos, and they have the British accent, and they have this very bright, girly kind of sound. And so I've been working on some of the songs from that, and really.
What was it?
A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder.
Oh, don't know that.
Yeah. So it's it's like, I decided to marry you, and it's just like this it's like pseudo legit kind of sound, just a little brighter than legit. But I'm not a soprano, but I'm having fun with this because I find that listening to the brighter side makes me not want to overcover the sound and go into this dark kind of sound, which is not really a sound that we really hear very often anywhere in more contemporary music, but so just really like using them as and playing around with the sounds and stuff, and the accent kind of helps because I feel like now I'm putting on a character, and so I can go brighter without feeling like, ooh, that's too bright, and overthinking it, because now I'm playing a character. But yeah, so I'm having fun with some of the songs from that and just really exploring my soprano side, because I don't usually play up there. I don't usually, and not even super high soprano. Like it's not, because I don't think I would really do very well really high soprano, but it's definitely all in like a head voice quality above the kind of thing. And it's
that's my life, is really head voice. So
yeah,
I'd love to hear you singing some head voice. Julie Andrews comes to mind. Why don't you study Julie Andrews?
Oh yeah.
A couple of us in Freya's group sang either I could have danced all night, or me, I could have danced all night.
But that's appropriate for that song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like to sing that in like a heavy chest mix would just not be appropriate.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to understand, is that, like, again, going back to the whole musical sensitivity thing and making good artistic choices, right? I mean, it kind of goes full circle to that there are times and places for every sound, and we just have to know when those times and places are.
Oh, this has been very interesting.
So I am on my way. I am leaving in a half hour to go see Something Rotten again.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, I've got to see that.
Oh, I saw it last year, and I'm like, I can't believe it's been 13 months.
Yeah.
Not even 13 months. Oh, it's only been a year. But it's been too long.
Yeah, because you said it would be like our Spamalot duet that we did.
I am in love with it. It's honestly my happy place. Like when I put it, like the soundtrack on in the van, I'm just like grinning from ear to ear, and I get giddy, and I'm just like, every time it's just my happy place.
Oh, right, we must see it.
Yeah. So I'm just in a half hour.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
Gotta go get changed. But that's where I'm off to. So it was good. It was a small little.
Yeah, well, this is stuff. Yeah, the singer-songwriting stuff. It is a world I don't know, but all we've talked about today, I'm glad I did manage to make it.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the primal sound type idea, or, I mean, you're talking about just that, aren't you? Is not trying to make the note, but imagine the sound and let it come.
Yeah. Did you see that interview I did with Christopher David Mitchell?
Is he the one who's and he's in London, you know?
Right, he is. He is.
Yeah.
He teaches a lot of West End singers.
I've seen him speak. I don't know if I saw your interview, but I've seen him speak on YouTube, definitely.
Okay, yeah. So I did an interview with him. Sorry?
He's I only watched part of it. Someone directed it. I'm terrible. I have all these things in a list that I'm going to watch, and I thought, oh wow, he's in London, and then I started looking him up. And you know, he only seems to charge, unless he has a team, £60 UK pounds for a lesson, which I was surprised if he's in the West End and trained by New York vocal coaching.
He is.
That's quite a modest amount, unless like New York vocal, he's got a team of people, but it didn't look like that.
He doesn't have a team yet.
No,
he doesn't. No, I brought that up just because we did talk a lot about primal sounds in that video where he talked about just sort of.
Right, you did.
About, you know, like one of the things that he does with his students is like, hey, pretend I'm going to go step on your toes, right? Would you? You would never say, oh, right? You would be like,
no, exactly,
right? It would be like, you know, well, why are you trying to sing everything? Why are you trying to change that sound? Yeah, I would go check that out and put it on double. Well,
I will, because that concept has been the biggest thing that excites me to think it might propel me a bit more quickly, because I do get so wound up in what am I in? Am I in a mix? Am I in a head mix or a chest mix? Or yeah. And why don't I just sing?
And I think if you can identify the primal sound that's kind of associated with it, So like, oh, she's, you know, yelling, or oh, she's crying, or she's whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And if you lead with that, that's going to get your voice to coordinate. But if you're just kind of sometimes, you know, thinking about the sound, sometimes it is
and the science
sound first, but again, sometimes you're an overthinker. Sometimes trying to identify the sound can actually get in your way. All right, I really should go.
We best let you off anyway.
All right, it was really good chatting with you too.
Nice to see you.
Okay,
cheers,
talk to you soon. Bye.